Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the great debate between the Australian Labor Party and the Australian Liberal Party. It's the first time that we have the pleasure of welcoming representatives from the major parties in Australia to this program. Can I start by first introducing our guest today? Firstly, Andrew Nguyễn, accountant. Please put your hands together for Andrew Nguyễn. Chris is a very familiar face with the Vietnamese community, member for Fowler. Please put your hands together for Chris. Councillor Toàn, who is also a solicitor and a former Vice President of the Vietnamese community in New South Wales. Please applause, give Toàn an applause. Davy, current President, Vice President for Planning of the Vietnamese community in New South Wales. Big hands for Davy. And Greg Kelly, second time, welcoming Greg Kelly, member for Hughes, federal member for Hughes. Last but not least, Paul Huy Nguyen, accountant, a very familiar face in the Vietnamese community, a person who's been making active contribution to the Vietnamese community. Please put your hands together for Paul Huy Nguyen. All right, I'll start on the right-hand side. First, why should the Vietnamese community in particular, and also in general, why should people be supporting Labor? I'll throw it over to this side. Maybe I'll ask Chris to start.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that question. I fortunately actually represent one of the most largest Vietnamese community in the whole of Australia. Matter of fact, only the last day and two I was down in Melbourne talking to the Vietnamese youth conference. So one of the things that came out of that is the issues that are really associated with not only young Vietnamese but Vietnamese community generally. One of the things I guess that I have only come to this electorate in 2010, so I've had to learn a lot about this community. And the way I sought to do that is not try and get out and ram politics down their throat, but go out and engage with the local people and listen to what they want. The other thing I also did is recruit Vietnamese people into my office. So to ensure that people, when they've got an issue, they don't have to have an interpreter service tell me what their issue is. They can come and have their matters dealt with directly. And I've got to say that doing business that way has allowed me to get very close to the Vietnamese people as to what they need, what their desires are, and particularly it gets down to issues, particularly health and education. There is no community that I've ever come to deal with that is more passionate about education than the Vietnamese community. They know what's the difference between success and otherwise in a country like Australia is ensuring that their children have the best access to education. And that's one of the things I think that's pretty powerful in this community. The other thing I've come to understand, the Vietnamese community is just so well represented throughout every area of our professions, whether it's engineering, law, medicine, finance. And part of the reason for that is, and as I just spoke to the conference, youth conference the other day, it probably gets back to their parents' passion for education. So look, I have actually worked very hard because I'm clearly not Vietnamese. I've worked very hard to actually get close to my community, understand what it is they truly want, and to try and service their needs. Now, I just think in our democracy, that's why we should go about doing business. And for me, as I say, I represent the largest Vietnamese community in the whole of Australia. And I think that's the best way of getting out, is engaging and showing people that you care.
Great.
So can I...
No, well, you take your turn later. Yes.
That's fine.
I think that there's a very close alignment between the Vietnamese community and the values and principles that we believe in the Liberal Party. Most of Australia's Vietnamese community actually fled a communist regime. They fled because they want greater opportunity, not only for themselves, but for their children and their grandchildren. They want increased prosperity. They want the opportunity to own their own business, to own property. And these are core fundamental principles of the Liberal Party that I belong to. I've met many Vietnamese people. The one thing I've found, they have an entrepreneurial culture that has added to this country enormously. And our Liberal philosophy is to foster that entrepreneurial culture, to allow it to thrive, to make sure that with family at the principle of our society, family groups, I believe that's the true way that's the best for our society. And as I said, our Liberal Party philosophy, I think, aligns very closely with that of the Vietnamese community here in Australia today.
You've got another 2 minutes.
Look, can I just say, look, I came to Australia 36 years ago. First, I joined the party almost 30 years. The party, the Liberal Party, representative of freedom of choice, the freedom, support enterprise, support value, provide incentive, provide opportunity. We are the party providing platform for economic growth, for prosperity. We just don't give, we don't give handout, but we always to give opportunity. We give people, we teach people how to fish, not to give them fish. That's the fundamental value of Liberal, and Liberal is representative of the prosperity of this nation. So I'm inspired by Menzies, the great leaders of Liberal. So I feel that, you know, freedom of choices, people have choices to create opportunity. The government provide incentive for us to prosper.
30 seconds.
30 seconds,
And then you'll have your turn again. Come on, quick.
Look, at the end of the day, I think the Liberal stands for a lot of, I guess, in terms of values. The Liberal have always been there to support immigrations and refugees like myself. There's a lot of misconception now in the community that the Liberal are against refugees, and I just want to clarify something, that's incorrect. The Liberal also, we encourage entrepreneurship, and that's something that a lot of Vietnamese people have in their spirit. You know, they escape a war-torn country, they come to Australia, they want to have a good life, they want to contribute to Australia, and in return, they also create jobs, create business. And these small businesses out there are all hardworking people that actually give employment to the unemployed who don't have a job.
Thank you, Dave. I'll come back to you. Toàn.
I joined the Labor Party. It's very simple. My family came to Australia as a refugee, and my father and mother were cleaners for many years to support us. And I believe that Labor is a core to support Australian people, especially the working class, to keep Australia fair, to keep the benefit share among all the people within Australia, not just those who are the privileged or those who are well educated, because we all know people have barriers, and therefore with the role of the government is to share those benefits around. Now unfortunately it's the fact that people are not the same. People who goes to school, but they might not have the ability to go to school or to advance in terms of education. Therefore, they need the assistance and good policy from government to assist those people. And you can see it through Labor's policy, health, education.
You know, for me, I feel that the Vietnamese community just arrived in Australia for a very short of time. We are behind the other communities in terms of unemployment, in terms of education, and then look at the way the government policy and value. The government believed, the Labour Party believed that the government should be a positive force in order to intervene in the community and in the economy in order to apply the fairness to everyone. So because of that value, of that philosophy, the Labour Party embraced the Gonski reform, which helped, and the Gonski said that every children should have the best possible education, regardless of where do they live and where do the parents, the level of income their parents is, and which school they go to. So because of that, I think that the Labour Party going to give good opportunity for the children in the suburbs of Kalamata and Bangsar. And you know, I travel along the country and I realize that the suburb of Kalamata and Bangsar, which I represent, is a bit behind compared to the other suburbs. So we need, the Labour Party also support fairness in health and education and public social security service. That all give a chance to Vietnamese to catch up with the other community. I don't mean that Kalamata and Bangsar should be treated differently from the other part of the country, but unless the Kalamata suburbs prosper, unless Australian proper unless the Karamata prosper together with the other community.
Thank you. I think that's it's a very good introduction by both sides. I've got on top of my list here Medicare co-payment, which I think is a very important policy. And since we do have quite a number of seniors in the audience, Greg, can I on this side can I invite one of you to?
Sure. Firstly, before we explain the policy, we need to understand the background problems that we have. In this country, we get a Medicare card, and that basically entitles us to get medical treatment in many cases for free in the past. But nothing is for free. Someone ultimately has to pay for it. Now, going back about a decade or more ago, the average Australian used their Medicare card about 4 times a year. Last year, that was 11 times a year. The growth that we have, we simply are unable to continue to afford the amount that we're spending on Medicare. That amount, as our population ages, is set to explode. Now, we can't keep borrowing money, creating debt for our children to pay off, to pay for our healthcare costs today. We have to pay for it. So what the Coalition's proposal is to have a $7 payment that would cost you to go to the doctors. So you would pay $7, the government would pay the other $35. That would get you into the doctors. Plus, there are a lot of safety nets and thresholds. If you're a pensioner or a child, the maximum that you would have to pay would be 10 times a year, which would be $70. So yes, we understand it's an impost. We wish we didn't have to do it, but we have to deal with the budgetary and fiscal situation that we find ourselves in, and we have to make sure that in the future that we can continue to provide Medicare to the less off and the needy. That is what this is all about.
Okay. Look, I think Medicare co-payment is a step that the government must have, because whenever it's free, people start to have abuse. People keep using unnecessary service. So one way to deter that is to introduce a co-payment. Co-payment $7. You know, a lot of critics will say, "Oh, $7 could stop people going to doctor." No, you don't think so. It's a 2 coffee. $7 is a must, because we cannot spend our way. We cannot build up our deficit. We have to reduce the debt, and one of the budgetary measurement is to reduce health costs. Health costs going up 5 or 6% a year. Yet our revenue base collapsing. So we must have, and health costs is about 16% of total budget. We have to reduce the cost. And $7 co-payment, $5 of that go to the medical research. So therefore, the medical research is an investment. So therefore, we reduce the spending, divert the spending, go to the investment for future generation. This is how the liberal philosophy is all about.
Please.
Well, I think you've got to be honest in this debate. The truth is, the Labor Party introduced Medicare some 30 years ago, and it's only the Labor Party that's actually fighting for it now. Medicare, this is a first step by the Liberal campaign to unravel universal health care in this country. And when this whole notion about they're going to tax sick people to go to a doctor. Now, I've got a mother who's a pensioner. I take her to the doctor. I know how many times I've got to do that. I also know how many times I've got to change her medicine. I'm not sure the people on the other side understand this, but the thing is also they're going to tax sick people to pay for medical research into the future. Research that's going to be done in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. I just don't get it. How can you have a situation, this is not changing the budget, Paul. This is actually putting a tax on sick people to pay for future medical research. Medical research is great. Taxpayers should pay for it. We should all invest in research. You don't tax sick people to pay for medical research for the future.
Look, what I would like to add is Australia have a great system. We all pay tax. Tax is it comes into a general coffin where we share it around. We share it evenly to the people. And talking about Medicare, all I want to give you an example is we're in winter at the moment. Okay, we're in winter right now. All right, a family of 4, if they're hit by a flu, all right, for this week, if they need to go to the doctor for the 4 of them, that's $28. If my math is correct, $28 extra on a week. That's all I want to say, and I will leave it like that.
Right of reply.
I disagree with Chris. This is not a tax. It's a reduction of the subsidies. When you go to the doctor here in Australia, if you are what's called bulk billed, you pay nothing. Someone has to pay that amount. At the moment, the government is paying the full amount. What we're asking people is to contribute just $7, and I understand that is an impost, but we simply cannot give away everything for free. There has to be some type of costs on some things. And it also should be noted that the Labor government, under Bob Hawke, actually brought this in and proposed this to have a co-payment for Medicare when you go to the doctors. It's something we wish we didn't have to do. But we live in the real world where things cost money, and you just cannot give everything away for free.
Can I just add to that?
We'll just come back to you later, Chris. Paul?
People got to remember that every time you go to a doctor, a fellow citizen, a fellow Australian citizen paying for that services. So Medicare or universal healthcare system is a place. And in order to sustain our health system, we must do something. We must reduce it to a sustainable level. We cannot continue to spend and increase the level and have the increment year after year without collecting revenue to subsidize and keep it sustainable for the future.
Can I add something to that debate, Chris? I totally agree with you that Australia, we have a very aging population. The Medicare system has been around for such a long time. In its time, it worked fine. However,
But the Liberals opposed it.
However, currently, I think a lot of people are abusing this system, and it's one of the most costly.
I disagree with that.
I
disagree with that.
Eventually,
why would people want to go to the?
Put it this way. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example.
30 seconds. You have 30 seconds.
Let me give you an example. If anything that's free, people will always go back for more and more. If you cut your little fingers, they will go and see a doctor. That's my point.
You need to wind up,
My point
Davy.
is that the system there was
You need
free,
to wind up.
but people are abusing the system, so therefore the government have stepped in to try to cut the costs.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, now you can have your turn. Chris.
If
Andrew.
you ask the people to contribute $7 per patient per time, why don't we put that sum of money into the health fund to give more money to the hospital? At the moment, I understand that the Albert government going to cut support to the health fund, to the public hospital. Why don't we put that money to the hospital? And the other thing I know is that some people of the research area, they say that when you put money into the research, Paul, the research money can go everywhere. It doesn't matter how much money to put in, that you do the use. I think, and better, in the future, what kind of project you're doing with the future to research fund? Is that the kind of research for the benefit of the rich people or the benefit of the common older Australian people? What is the question we would like to ask, because we'd like to know exactly what the future health fund going to use for. Who is going to allocate that money to what research, and which company going to time to get that money?
You got 1 minute?
Just very quickly, Paul made the issue about needing to cut payments into health, and the Liberal government is actually doing that. In terms of health and education, the Liberal government is taking $80 billion out of the system over the next 10 years. And you don't have to accept my view of that. The Premier of New South Wales, Michael Baird, he actually came out and said that this was a kick in the guts for New South Wales. You had the Premier of Queensland coming out and cutting services in Queensland and saying the reason why he's done it because the Commonwealth government, the Abbott government, has cut health and education. So look, this is just a matter of fact. So if you think about the $7 co-payment, what this is going to do, it's going to tax obviously sick people, particularly the elderly, particularly those on some form of benefits, but families. And as one paediatrician put to me, if you've got a child that's got a high temperature, runny nose and all the rest of it, you might think twice whether you take the child to the doctor. It may not be the flu, it might be meningitis, and that's a death sentence.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, Toàn, later. I want to move on to the next topic, which is associated with Medicare as well, and that is the age pension. Obviously, there are some concerns about the recent budget that's got to do with the age pension, so great if you can explain.
Firstly, just as I get on to the age pension, it's very important for people on the age pension to understand that there's actually no cuts to health. The facts are that this financial year, the Commonwealth Government is spending 9% more than what was spent last year. Next year, we will spend 9% more again. And the following year, it will be 9% more on top of that.
But not what we
so
promised.
we are seeing a 36% increase in health spending over the next 3 years. And we are doing that at the same time as trying to reduce the budget deficit. Now, what Chris talks about is some pie-in-the-sky spending that Labor promised, all on borrowed money.
No, that's untrue. I recommend you read the Sydney Morning Herald today.
We cannot finance our medical spending today by stealing from our children and by running up government debt. It is an absolute fact that we are increasing health spending in this country by 9%. And we're trying to do that in a very difficult and tight budgetary situation. Now, when it comes to the pension, again, we have to explain what the nature of the problem is. The problem is we have an ageing population. At the moment, it's about 5 people in the workforce of working age for 1 person over 65. By the year 2050, that will be down to 2.4 people in the workforce for 1 person over 65. It's great, but that's happened because we're having a less birth rate and we're having success in the medical field where people are living longer. We simply are not going to have the financial resources in this nation, and that is why we are increasing the pension age. Now, the previous government increased the pension age to 67. We're increasing the age to 70, but that doesn't kick in until 2035. So it's a long way off.
30
it
seconds.
gives people a long time to plan with superannuation planning. This is not something that should have a lot of adverse effect on people, because we're doing it over many years, allowing people to plan for this increase because we simply have to, because the budgetary situation we face demands that we do.
Yeah, Toàn, Chris on this side.
So
Come
can
back
I
to
just
you.
say, I don't know with all your viewers may have read the Sydney Morning Herald today. It had a survey there of the 25 top economists in the country, from banking institutions, financial institutions, from universities. All but one said there was no government emergency, budget emergency in this country. So all this stuff that the Abbott government goes off, all this goes off is just hyperbole. And by the way, and even the state premier said not once did the Abbott government raise the issue about their cuts before at the last Chogman conference, or the last heads of government conference rather. So before they made these cuts. So this is, and when you're talking about pensioners, this is not just about going to age 70, in which I've got to question the reason for doing that and not telling anyone about it or producing any evidence, but they're changing the way they index pension indexation into the future. They're going to use it on the basis of changing it to the indexation to the CPI rate, as opposed to a rate which is linked to wages growth. So it means pension growth will be at a lot lower rate than it once was. So, matter of fact, if they use the same rate over the last 5 years, pensions now would be $1,500 a year less. So, look, they are making cuts to pensions. Make no mistake about that. And when you add on to that, pensioners paying the GP tax, when they fill their car up, they're paying a new tax on petrol. Pensioners are doing it tough. They only exist now on $20,000 a year, and these people think they're going to make it harder for them to actually by lowering the rate of their indexation.
Look, I believe the policy that the current government is putting in place at the moment, specifically to the pension and the pension age, is to modify our social security system, especially to the pension age. The reason being is I can't see how people can work up to the age of 70, especially at least more than 50% of our workforce are in physical work. They're doing physical work. How can they? I was talking to a fire person the other day. It was a lady. She goes, look, I'm in my 40s. I expect to retire very soon. But how can a firefighter work up until the age of 70? I can't just. I can't see that. Back to the Medicare that I want to raise earlier. Tax is a tax. Tax come in different forms, okay? So when you say $7 paid extra on top currently is not a tax, I disagree with that totally. Because anything that the government tax in, it is a form of a tax, okay? I can see that. Now you said that it's abusive to go to the doctor. Why would people want to go to see a doctor for? They only go to see a doctor when they are sick, okay? They only go to see a doctor if they need their advice. So for you to say, oh, there are 11 people on average going to the doctor a year, that could be correct, but that could be a different age bracket. That could be an age bracket of, say, pensioners
I need you to wind
people
in
a young age or whatever, but I don't think it's a general figure for the whole population.
Reply. Okay.
Can I just go back to the age pension? $40 billion a year That's the budget for the age pension. If the way we continue to going down with the age pension entitlement or welfare, let's go to 70 billion for the next 10 years. We talk about sustainability here. Sustainability is that we're going to look after our budget in order to continue to provide our pensioners. So we got to make sure that if we don't do something now, we are not going to have the money to pay for any pensioners. So therefore, just go back to the business of, we are telling people, you can retire whatever age you like, but the government will only subsidize you in the age of 70, 2035. We're letting people know nearly 2 decades before we're going to do it. But what we are signaling to the people is that, hang on a minute, we cannot spend the way we spend now. Because if we do that, then we have no money to provide anybody.
See,
we have no access to healthcare, age pension, and everyone will be stuck.
Chris, you're going to get your turn later.
See,
Okay.
the Liberal, we have an economic plan and strategy in place to get Australia back on track.
What track? What
Okay.
track? We are on track.
Well,
Let him
we're
have his
talking about throwing monies away.
Now, I think we should listen to this one.
Okay. We're talking
I
about.
reckon we're going to have a go.
Are you not recording me? Eh?
Come on, Davy.
Look,
Come on.
what we're trying to say is we need to get our finance in order, and we need to live within our means. If we don't do that, there is not enough money there to subsidise to look after Australia for the next 5, 10, 15 years down the track.
Well, nobody's subsidising Australia. Australia is actually paying
Chris,
its
we're
way.
in debt.
The way that-
We're borrowing
Yeah.
billions of dollars every month.
We're paying
Can I
$1 billion
just
a month in
indicate-
Okay.
Can I
interest
just
alone.
indicate
Let him
that
have his turn
if
then.
you
Okay.
read that Sydney Morning Herald today, look, Craig, I don't know, you're many things, but I don't think you're one of the country's leading economists.
Well, Chris,
24 of them out of 25
You've misread
said
the
that we
article.
did not have a
misread
debt
the
issue.
article.
And while we're
That's not what
retiring,
they
while
said.
we're retiring
That's not
debt, what they said is the biggest issue this country's got is maintaining economic growth. And leading up to the last election, the FIFO documents, which is the pre-election fiscal outlook document, indicated a growth rate of 3.5%. And I know the Liberal Party said, now that's just not true, it can't be true. And you know what happened when they produced the actual growth rate only 2 months ago? It was 3.5%. We have a debt ratio of 14% to our GDP compared to OECD nations, which is 75%. We have low interest rate. We have a continuing employment growth, and this is a country that's moving forward. Now, for all these ones who want to sit on this side and want to belittle the contribution that Australia makes, I'd say, you've got to actually question, their values. This is not about, as Dewey said, about paying for subsidising the country. We are paying our way. Our country is growing. Compared to the OECD nations, we have a significant growth rate. And what the economists all said, Craig, and as you read the article, I hope, what they did say, the biggest thing for Australia at this stage is investing in research and education to help trigger growth for the future. Now, that's something your government is not doing.
The way Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey say in the budget that we go in to rescue the Australian economy. But if I agree with that, why don't you share the burden equally with our people? It seems to me that in order to save the budget, you put the burden on the low and middle income family. You cut the family tax benefits, you cut the pension, you cut the education, the health fund, all that, and I don't think anything you touch with the higher income people, any kind of tax.
30 seconds.
Medicare.
The
whole majority of the people in Karamata, Bank South, doing manual work. I can think that the person who work in the office can continue to work until 70 years old, but people in the factory, in the manual work, people in Bank South and Karamata won't be able to do a manual work until they reach 70 years old. So they've been paying tax for the whole year. When can they earn the pension that they're entitled to? That is the question I would like to ask you. Why don't you share the burden equally between all classes of people? Why don't you put the burden on the low and middle income?
Your reply to that, but I would also like to move on to the next topic, which is a closely related topic, or the social issues, which is education. I've got a question here on education, in particular university and TAFE. So if you give a reply to what Andrew was saying and also address your position on education as well.
First on education. the idea that there's cuts is complete rubbish. This
That's right,
financial
it
year,
doesn't.
the spending on education, as Chris well knows, increases 8%. Next year, it increases a further 8%. The year after, it increases a further 8%. We are putting record amounts of money into education. Now, what we're doing in universities, we want to have as many Australians as possible to have the opportunity, because that is our core Liberal philosophy, to give opportunity to as many Australians as possible. So we want to give that opportunity to give more people to get into university. And under Christopher Pyne's plan, that will be 80,000 more Australians that will be able to get into university.
If they could pay.
Now, what we are
If
doing,
they could
well,
pay.
that's the point.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay. You get into university in this country without paying 1 single cent up front. And you know what? The taxpayer, under the changes we're going to make, at the moment, the taxpayer pays on average about 60% of your university cost. The student only pays 40. We think that it should be about a 50-50 split, and that's what the changes will make it. So someone going to university, they'll end up paying 50% of their course without 1 cent up front, and they'll be able to borrow that money from the government and only pay it back at the CPI rate.
No.
Now, yeah, that's
One
right.
minute.
Chris.
It's not
That's
CPI
right,
rate.
Chris.
Yeah.
That's right, Chris.
It's
Now,
compound interest
Yes.
now, the other thing that's able to happen,
1 minute.
right, creating these extra opportunities. If you go to university today, on average, you will earn over your lifetime $1 million extra. $1 million over your lifetime because of the investment that you've put in your education. Now, what we're asking those people to do, that have the benefit of that going to university, we don't think it should be the workers in Bankstown and Cabramatta that pay for their university course or pay for all of it. So we're asking them to make a slightly larger contribution to that advantage, to that cost of their education, because they will get the benefit back over many, many years to come.
30 seconds.
Okay. Can I just add that to answer the question raised by on the other side? Look, everyone will share the heavy lifting. The high income earner, the government introducing anyone over 180,000 will be pay a debt levy of 2%. Now we don't have to pay this debt if were not the Labour government giving us this big budget deficit that this Liberal government was inherited from. So therefore, everyone sharing the burden. So the $180,000 and above will pay 2%. We are not focusing on the low income or medium income earner. Everyone do the sharing.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I just
Yeah,
quickly
reply,
deal with that?
reply.
And
You've got
put
3
it-
minutes. Yeah.
And put it in perspective, it's the 180,000 above will pay a 3% levy for 2 years, and 2 years only. Then it's back to where we are now. But if you're a pensioner, if you're a carer, if you're a family that's on family tax benefit B, if you're a single parent, they are permanent adjustments you're making. So under this budget, not 2 years, and we're going to go back where we were, under this budget, it's setting in stone into the future that the most disadvantaged in our community are going to be treated the harshest. How is that fair? How is that fair?
I wish to add this bit too, okay? Now, you said that the Labor government, or the former Labor government, has put Australia into a very, very bad situation in terms
Correct.
of debt.
Absolutely.
Okay, that is
Glad you agree.
That is rubbish. The reason is 15%. All right.
We got big
Any
bad
young family,
school
myself
hall.
included, any young family, myself included, if you go out and get a mortgage today, okay, our banking system would allow you to loan up to 95% or 80% without paying the extra mortgage insurance. Now that is a standard practice that we're doing in this country, okay? The bank or the government here allowed individual family or young family to own a property when they own debts up to 80%, okay? And as a country like Australia, compared to other economic advanced nation, we're owning 15%, not even 15%. And you say that's a massive
But Toàn,
debt,
can I just say Australia had
a massive,
the fastest growing nation.
That's incorrect.
No,
that's incorrect.
We have the
Yeah.
That's all I wish to say in terms of an example for you to compare. Okay, 15% of debts that are owned by this nation is not a massive debt like what the Liberal is saying.
what we're saying is that we raise the alarm bell. Australia had the fastest debt growing nation. The amount that we spend right now, and we continue to do that. What we talking about? Okay, We escaped from the GFC. Good. However, what about the future? we okay. 2 decades ago, we are in
That's right.
prosperity.
The Labour will fix it up. Labour will fix it up, just like we
now
did.
We've got $40 billion deficit. Therefore, $23,000 per annum per person.
What was your
is
answer
debt.
to the global financial crisis? What was the Liberals' answer to the
It
global
finished 5
financial
years ago.
crisis?
It finished 5 years ago.
Chris,
the global
What was the
financial
Liberals'
No,
crisis.
we're
answer?
still under the
What was the
GFC.
Liberals'
still doing?
suggestion?
Under the GFC.
The answer was they didn't have one. They did not have an approach. They wanted to sit on their hands and wait to see how bad this
Yeah, but
got.
Chris,
Okay,
the
yes.
amount that they spend on pink bag, school hall,
That's it.
all the waste, all the handout.
Hey,
Now we
why
have
is
to
it
pay.
waste? Why is it a waste?
No, it is a waste because
No,
all
it's
the
not a
handout,
waste.
now
Look, to
we
tell you
have
the
to
truth,
pay.
in my council right now, okay, there are at least 5 or 6 schools because of the program. They have a school hall now. Okay, so it is a good program.
No, but
It
did
is
you
a
know
good
there was a
program. It
law?
gives jobs to the economy
which
and it
school-
gives facility to
which
the
schools
schools.
don't you
Or
think
just-
they should have got their school halls?
It's
You
not,
tell-
it's the
which
cost.
school?
It's the cost.
No, which school?
They can't.
Which
The
you
cost
take-
of
you've
overrun,
taken
the
it.
cost
Oh,
of
that's right.
overrun
You
is
support
what
all
I'm
your
talking about.
schools.
Chris,
Can I just interrupt this heated debate right here? What I'm hearing so far from this side is
Your
spend,
school's
spend,
okay though,
spend.
wasn't it?
My school's fantastic, but our hall got ripped off because the hall was worth like 200,
Right.
but then we ended up paying
Why
500,000-600,000
can't you
for
do
it.
public work
You
with
know what I'm saying?
$200,000?
So I feel it's a
That's
rip-off.
rubbish.
How much
No.
I feel
Hang
that
on,
the Labour
hang on,
Party
hang on. You
for
went to a
GFC,
Catholic
they were
school.
giving too much money away.
You weren't ripped off.
All right.
I read this situation because you guys were giving too much
Well,
money away.
thank you, guys. I think you
Nah.
both made your point quite clear there. I'd like to move on to another interesting issue which has been raised by the audience. That is women's rights. So this time I'd like to have Labour side first. Women's rights. I suppose the question is to deal with what does the Labour Party, what is the policies of the Labour Party to advance the interests of women and to, I guess, to advance equality of opportunities insofar as women are concerned.
Well, if you want to look at the women's rights and the way women are represented, just look on the front bench of the Labour Party in Parliament. Unfortunately, in Cabinet, there's only one woman on the Liberal side in Cabinet. So look, we have a position that obviously in having equality, and you can see that in just the way we run our parliamentary team. One of the issues that's going to come up here, though, is going to be the issue about paid parental leave. And with something I also want to put in perspective, the biggest issue for us in Western Sydney is in terms of childcare. Now, when childcare is being cut in favour of paid parental leave for the richest areas of our community, and I know this is going to be an issue because people say, well, why should people be able to actually have a baby than they go on minimum rates as they do at the moment? But why should people in Cabramatta, a family in Cabramatta, have a baby where the average income there is $35,000? So the child in Cabramatta worth a little bit over $15,000 to a child in maybe Joe Hockey's electorate, where the average income is about $100,000, are going to get paid $50,000. A kid's a kid. We think if we all believe, and I think hopefully across the political divide, we believe in some equality insofar as every child has the capacity to go on to do anything they want. Now, how are we going to put a value on one child in North Sydney being worth $50,000 to a child born in Cabramatta being worth $30,000? This is hypocrisy writ large.
Look, I just want to add in terms of Labour policy, we also have a policy in place where the party encourage females to join the rank within council, within state and federal.
Is there still a policy of guarantee 30% women in winnable seats? Is that still a policy of the Labour Party?
It's approximately that's a policy. So you can tell or you can see from our policy from the grassroots is that we encourage female to enter into leadership role and into a winnable seat for council, state and federal.
Thank you. You're this side.
I'll go on the paid parental leave subject. Firstly, we need to identify the problem that we have in this nation. Our birth rate, our fertility rate is currently 1.87 children for every female. So what that means, we need a replacement rate, we need a birth rate over 2, otherwise we're declining as a population, we're actually dying as a people. Now, one of the big issues that we have of why many women are not having kids today is because when they're in work and living in Sydney, you often find that it's both the husband and the wife that need to be in the workforce to pay the mortgage, to pay the costs of running the car, to pay the costs of living. They simply cannot afford for one of the partners to take time off work to have a child. So what the Coalition's proposal is, that you will actually be able to get your replacement wage for 6 months up to $100,000 limit as the maximum threshold of what your wage would be. You will get that paid 6 months by the government. That will be funded by an additional company tax on the largest companies of the nation, who are already paying a very large paid parental leave. Now, Chris talks about unfairness. Currently, the current system is unfair because there are many people that work in public servants, and actually probably staff in our parliamentary offices have much more generous paid parental leave schemes than someone working in Cabramatta or Bankstown. So the Coalition's plan is to bring it back where you will get your replacement wage. So why should, if you are going off 6 months to have a child, we think you should be paid in the same way that you are paid sick pay, that you are paid holiday leave? Because this is one of the ways we believe will actually increase the fertility rate of the country. Because if we don't, in years down the track, with our ageing population, we're going to be in very big trouble. Now, it's very easy to throw barbs and political barbs at the paid parental leave scheme and say you're giving money to rich people and make these things about it. But if we stay on the track that we are going, we are heading for a serious crisis with the ageing population that we're doing. This is one step that we are doing to try and address this problem.
1 minute.
Okay, I think the Liberal recognize the need to bring back the mothers back to the workforce after maternity leave. So therefore, it's an utmost important to give the support. Now, that's what the Liberals all are. The Liberals provide support, provide incentive for mothers who have young children go back to the workforce. Now, obviously, some critics saying, "Oh, we're subsidizing middle class." No, you're not. We're subsidizing family. We're subsidizing family in order to assist them go back to the workforce.
Reply. This side.
I could feel that, you know, the value of the Labour Party is to give the fair go to all people. And in that regard, I can feel that in the Labour Party, we have more Labour MP female, also in the front bench, also in the back bench. And I remember last year, by the name of the same person, the same name with me, Mr. Andrew Nguyễn. He stand for the Karamata suburb, the MP. For federal, but some people say he wasn't allowed to attend seminar in the public place during the election. So what I could feel that the Labour Party very much give a fair go to all people, especially people from the migrant background, of the non-English speaking background, and also women. That's it.
One minute.
Look, just
to continue.
Look, and I must acknowledge that the Liberal Party did run a candidate against in the former election for state seat of Cabramatta. You recall Davy, and I think she took Labor down from about a 22% seat down to 20%. So she got a phenomenal swing against her. You would have thought that she had done enough for the Liberal Party to recognise that, to give her another chance, or to put her in the upper house in New South Wales. Now, so much for a person who actually made a 20% gain on a Western Sydney seat. Not that I want her to win the seat, but recognising what she did, and she can't get the party to even give her another go.
Well, if we want to get into internal political from the Liberal point of view, can I address the issue and I'll answer that question for you, Chris H. Davy had an opportunity. Head office gave her an opportunity to come down to represent Cabramatta. Our campaign was very hard, in the sense that Cabramatta has been dominated by the Labor Party for the last 20, 30 years. So it was an uphill battle for the Liberal Party, but we acknowledge that females also plays a very important role in our society. So that's why we let Davy out to represent the Liberal Party in Cabramatta. However, we lost out only by 10 or 15%, which was a great success in terms of the marketing and the whole strategy, what we used in trying to combat the Labor Party there. But for you to turn and say that the Liberal Party, we don't support females, I think that's wrong.
Because you didn't put it in the upper house.
We didn't put it in the upper house. We didn't put it up.